The church smelled like fresh flowers and old promises. White roses lined the aisle, their petals perfect, untouched everything I thought my future would be. Guests whispered softly, smiling at me as I walked forward in my wedding dress, the fabric heavy with dreams I had been carrying for years. My hands shook, but I told myself it was just nerves, happy nerves, the kind people talk about later and laugh. I believed I was safe. I believed love protected people from cruelty. He stood at the altar, handsome and calm, adjusting his cufflinks like this was any ordinary day. When our eyes met, I searched his face for reassurance. He didn't smile back. I told myself not to panic. Maybe he was emotional. Maybe this moment was overwhelming. The officiant nodded for him to speak. That was when everything changed. Instead of reaching for my hands, he stepped back just one step, but it felt like miles. The silence that followed was sharp, unnatural, as if the entire room had inhaled and forgotten how to breathe. He laughed, not the laugh I knew, not warm or shy or nervous. This one was cold. "I can't do this," he said into the microphone. His voice echoed off the stone walls. "I can't marry you." A murmur swept through the guests. Someone gasped. My heart slammed so hard I thought I might faint. He looked at me like I was something embarrassing he'd been forced to carry too long. "She's pathetic," he continued casually, like he was discussing the weather, "clinging to me, clinging to this wedding, because she has nothing else going on in her life." I felt every pair of eyes turn toward me. Pity, shock, curiosity. Phones lifted before anyone could stop them. This wasn't just humiliation. It was performance. She begged for this. He went on, for the ring, for the future for me, and honestly, I got tired of pretending I wanted the same things. My ears rang, the words blurred together, each one landing like a slap. I wanted to scream that he was lying. That love wasn't supposed to sound like this. That the man I trusted knew my fears, my insecurities, and was now using them like weapons. But my voice wouldn't come. I saw my mother rise halfway from her seat before my father pulled her back down. I saw friends frozen, unsure whether to intervene or look away. I saw my entire life collapse in real time. He smiled then, a satisfied, cruel smile. "I needed you to know," he said, lowering his voice slightly, "that without me, you're nothing." That was the moment something strange happened. I didn't cry. The tears burned behind my eyes, desperate to fall, but they didn't. Instead, a deep, quiet stillness settled in my chest. Not strength yet, just clarity, sharp and painful. Slowly, deliberately, I lifted my trembling hand and slid the engagement ring from my finger. The diamond caught the light once, flashing like a goodbye. I placed it on the altar between us, if breaking me in front of everyone. I said softly, my voice shaking but clear, "Is what you need to feel important, then I hope it was worth it." He blinked, surprised. He'd expected begging, screaming, collapse. I gave him none of it. I turned around and walked down the aisle alone, past the flowers, past the guests, past the future I thought I'd lost. Behind me, the doors closed, and with them, the illusion that love had ever been on my side. The silence after the wedding was louder than his words had been. When the doors closed behind me, the world didn't rush in to comfort me like people promise it will. It went still, empty. I went home alone, still wearing the dress, sitting on the edge of the bed as the sun set and rose again without me noticing. The white fabric pooled around my feet like a reminder of how foolish hope could be. I didn't cry at first. I felt hollow, like my body was moving out of habit while my soul stayed somewhere back in that church, frozen in front of everyone's pity. His voice replayed in my head over and over, pathetic, nothing without me. Every word etched itself deeper, convincing me I deserved the humiliation. Messages flooded my phone, some kind, some awkward, some cruelly curious. I ignored them all. I wasn't ready to explain a pain that had no language yet. I stopped answering calls, stopped leaving the house, stopped looking in mirrors because every reflection felt like proof that he was right. At night, the tears came, quiet and endless. I cried for the future I'd planned so carefully, for the love I thought was real, for the version of myself who believed being chosen meant being valued. I cried until my chest ached, until exhaustion dragged me into sleep. But pain has a way of forcing honesty. One morning I woke up angry instead of broken. Not loud anger, just a dull, steady heat in my chest. I replayed the wedding again, but this time I watched him more closely. His confidence, his smile, the way he waited for the room's attention before speaking. It wasn't heartbreak I saw in his eyes. It was control. That realization shook me. He hadn't ended the wedding because he fell out of love. He ended it because love didn't give him power anymore. And suddenly, the shame I'd been drowning in didn't feel like it belonged to me. I started asking questions I'd avoided before. Why had I always been the one apologizing? Why had my needs felt like inconveniences? Why did love feel like walking on glass? The answers were painful, but freeing. I packed the dress away, not gently, not ceremoniously. I boxed it up with the ring, the photos, the letters. Not because I was healed, but because I refused to keep bleeding in the same place. That was the first small act of self-respect I'd shown myself in a long time. I found a therapist. On the first day, I could barely speak. The words stuck in my throat like guilt, but she listened without judgment, without pity. And slowly, I learned that being hurt didn't make me weak. It made me human. I took long walks alone, headphones in, letting the city remind me that life continued with or without my consent. I started eating again, sleeping better, breathing deeper. Each tiny improvement felt like rebellion. Some nights I still missed him, not who he was, but who I believed he could be. That grief was sharp and confusing. But I stopped romanticizing the cruelty. I stopped excusing it. I wasn't healed, but I was awake. And in that awakening, I felt something new forming beneath the pain, not revenge, not forgiveness, but awareness. The understanding that the person he tried to destroy was still here, still standing, still capable of becoming someone stronger than the girl he humiliated. He thought he ended me that day. What he actually did was end the version of me that would ever let someone do that again. Healing didn't arrive like a sunrise. It came like a series of small, almost invisible choices made quietly, without witnesses, no announcements, no dramatic transformations, just a decision every day to keep moving forward even when the past tugged at my ankles. I rebuilt my life the way people rebuild after a storm, piece by piece, carefully, with respect for what had been lost. I changed my routines first. Early mornings replaced sleepless nights. Coffee by the window instead of crying on the bathroom floor. I learned that discipline could be a form of kindness when motivation disappeared. Work became my refuge. I poured myself into it, not to escape the pain, but to prove to myself that I was capable of focus, of leadership, of finishing things I started. Recognition followed slowly raised eyebrows, then trust, then opportunity. For the first time in years, my name meant something beyond his fiancé. I didn't post about it. I didn't update my life online. I wanted my growth to be real, not performative. There was power in knowing something good was happening that he couldn't see. Therapy peeled me open in ways I hadn't expected. I confronted patterns I'd once defended, how I'd confused intensity with love, how I'd silenced my instincts to keep the peace, how being chosen felt more important than choosing myself. Those truths hurt, but they also stitched something stronger into me. I started saying no to invitations that drained me, to conversations that circled back to him, to guilt disguised as kindness, Each no was a quiet reclaiming of space. Physically, I changed too, not in ways meant to impress, but in ways that made me feel alive again. Long walks turned into morning runs. Runs turned into strength. Strength turned into confidence. I stood differently, spoke differently, laughed without checking who was listening. Friends noticed. They said I seemed lighter, calmer, whole. I smiled and said thank you, but inside I knew the truth. It wasn't lightness. It was grounding. I was finally standing on myself. Occasionally, his name drifted back to me through mutual circles. He was dating again, telling his version of the story, casting himself as honest, bold, unafraid to walk away. The old me would have been shattered by that. This version simply nodded and moved on. I no longer needed to correct the narrative. The most surprising change wasn't my success or confidence. It was my peace. I stopped fantasizing about confrontation, stopped rehearsing speeches I'd never deliver. I realized revenge required him to still matter. And he didn't. Then came the invitation, a professional event, a panel discussion. My name listed among people I admired. I almost declined out of habit, then caught myself. I didn't shrink anymore. I accepted. Only later did I learn he would be there. The thought of seeing him again didn't send me spiraling. It didn't steal my sleep. It simply felt inevitable. Like life closing a chapter properly, I prepared for the event the way I prepared for everything now, with intention. Calm self-respect, not to impress him, not to prove anything, just to show up as myself. As I stood in front of the mirror that morning, adjusting my jacket, I met my own gaze without flinching. The girl he humiliated was gone, but not destroyed. She had evolved. And for the first time, I understood something powerful. The quiet rise is always the one they never hear coming. The venue buzzed with low conversation and polished confidence, the kind of place where success spoke softly but carried weight. As I stepped inside, I felt no rush of fear, no tightening in my chest. Just awareness, grounded, present. I belonged here, and I didn't need permission to take up space. When I walked onto the stage, applause followed. Not loud, not exaggerated, respectful, earned. I took my seat among the panelists, adjusted the microphone, and focused on the conversation ahead. My voice was steady as I spoke, my thoughts clear. I answered questions with ease, not once wondering how I looked, only whether I was being honest. That's when I saw him. He stood near the back of the room, half smiling, half stunned. Time hadn't been as kind to him as he probably expected. The confidence he once wore so easily looked borrowed now. When our eyes met, recognition flickered, followed by disbelief. He waited until the panel ended. "I didn't know you'd be here," he said, approaching me with forced casualness, like the past was something we could casually step around. "I didn't know you'd be listening," I replied politely. He laughed, the same laugh, but emptier. "You look different." "I am," I said simply. He shifted, uncomfortable. "I never thought you'd actually bounce back like this." There it was, the truth slipping out. I smiled, not sharp, not sweet, just calm. "That's because you thought breaking me was the end of my story." Around us, people moved, talked, lived. No spotlight, no stage, and yet, this moment felt more exposed than the wedding ever had. "I was harsh," he said. "But I was honest. You needed to hear it." I looked at him fully then, really looked. And for the first time, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just clarity. "No," I said quietly. "You needed to say it." His expression faltered. "You wanted an audience," I continued, my voice even. "You wanted control. What you didn't expect was that I'd stop needing you to define me." He opened his mouth, searching for something. An apology, an excuse, a hook. I didn't wait for it. "You once told me I was nothing without you," I said. Standing here now, I finally understand that was never about me. Silence stretched between us. "I hope you find whatever it is you're still looking for," I added, not out of kindness, but closure. "But you won't find it in me." People nearby glanced over, sensing the shift. He looked smaller under their awareness, uncertain, exposed. Not because I attacked him, but because I didn't protect his image anymore. I turned to leave. As I walked away, I felt something settle inside me, a quiet, undeniable victory. Not because he regretted his choices, not because I'd wounded his pride, but because I no longer carried the weight of what he tried to make me believe. Once he ended our wedding to break me. Tonight, without raising my voice or seeking revenge, I gave him his answer. I didn't need to humiliate him. I had already outgrown him.